Morning, fellow zombies. It's 9:11 in the morning, West Coast time for a Thursday, the 2nd of May 2024. I'm watching the news back on KTLA. I just got up a few moments ago and looking at the devastation out in UCLA. Because earlier this morning I was up and watching the whole damn thing. It was just too much. It was just nuts. I know some people will be yelling and screaming their heads, what's good of the First Amendment rights if we're not allowed to protest? I said, yeah, you're allowed to protest. The problem is, there's more to it than that, and you think it is simple. That's one thing that political science teachers ever tell you about it. It's never simple. It is a thing to have freedom of speech, but there's always a cost to it. The Constitution was made and our country was created. There was always a cost to our liberty, our freedoms, because we would be sacrificing a hell of a lot to gain something precious. And we're seeing this demonstration of it being put into garbage piles out in UCLA. People with their livelihood put it up there and try to make a difference, trying to put up a message. But sometimes the message was falling on deaf ears, or it's like I'm looking at portions of Royce Hall. Certain accesses into it that got tagged as if it was in downtown somewhere. The whole area has got to be cleaned up. It'll take about a weekend or two, or maybe more, to get it back to the pristine because it looked like it was all just trampled on for nothing. Lived on it for about a week or two, almost, and people weren't going to take any. They were thinking, the protesters were thinking they're going to stay there until their demands were met. Just because holding a campus is going to help them, the OC system, divest from companies that were supplying arms and weapons to Israel that were still hurting other people. It was supposed to have been a peaceful one. When you have activists and antagonists coming through to prove how pointless their protesting is, only made the Palestinian protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters, have more solidarity with each other over it. They wanted it peaceful, but they couldn't have it peaceful because you had activists out there who were trying to disturb that peace and quiet. But camping on the campus, and they're thinking that they're going to be, they think they were going to do something about it. I know a lot of them were disillusioned that they didn't get their way. They were hoping maybe they'd get their way, which was a victory for them. At least talks and acknowledgments about it. But because we had conflict happening, didn't matter which side, there was still conflict. They were going to be suffering through this thing. I probably think that freedom of speech, what you're hearing in the background right now is KTLA. I hadn't quite muted it yet. I'm still watching the cleanup of a campus. Campus has still tried to promote the idea and idealism of freedom of speech, but they never put out the cost, what it was. The stairs leading up to Rice Hall and the libraries tagged, so the ground looks like rabid taggers got over the area and just littered the area with markings all over the place. It's going to take a while for that campus to regain its beauty again. And now what do they do with it? Now you got security, portions of PD over there. As we're doing a overhead. Several bikes. Certain areas are still gated. They kept up and being taken care of. People were trying to make a message. Well, they made a message, all right. They didn't like what UC system was trying to do. They were trying to force the system to keep its investments into other countries that were making a negative impact. Negative impact, hell. Weaponry and stuff that would inflict harm on the Palestinian people. And yet, if there was anybody regarding pro-peace in Israel, there wasn't that much. They wanted peace. Palestinians wanted peace. They were trying to keep it peaceful. But the antagonists had other ideas. A lot of people have been taking sides over this thing. Us versus them situation or mentality. So, the question for myself is, what side am I on? The United States would be supporting Israel. That's the thought and feelings these days. So if I'm not supporting Israel, I'm a dirty, rotten traitor. I have to keep looking at the history and say, no, you don't look at history. You look at it right now. You have to look at it right now. Who cares about history? Well, global history. Why not? Pisses people off if I happen to start looking at it. We have to go back to the biblical times. And there was no actually land ownership on the Middle East. In certain areas they held their territories. Started marking up boundaries and trying to make them officially declared. Trying to hold on to that sovereignty of that piece of land. Some people would bleed and die over it. We don't want that kind of sovereignty, that territory for ourselves, don't we? I'm not trying to find the blame in the situation, though. Everyone else will be finding the blame so they can feel smug and satisfied of what happened. Whose fault was it? Palestinians wanted to make a mark. Well, they left their marker right. Let other people to make a mark on a campus that was breaking the law, and they didn't care about that. So in that instance, yeah, I do blame them on that one. I also blame the Israelis coming on campus, or people trying to be pro-Israel, or pretending to be pro-Israel when they wanted to cause a conflict. I got something against that. I didn't want to hear the smugness coming from other people of what the hell happened out there. I was watching and trying to see what was going on. Right now, on the national chain, I'll be talking about Trump hush money trial. I prefer talking about what the hell happened on the campuses left and right. People trying to say why it meant a great deal to them, of why they forced this issue. I'm more interested about what Trump in his mouth talks about instead of what happened. why the message is getting buried alive. I'd rather know why the message got buried alive when it came down for the protesting, when they took over college campuses. The students did, or the activists actually did, or both. So how are you supposed to deal with that one? I don't know. I've seen several campuses freaking out across the country. They stayed there long enough. They protested long enough. Now it's time for them to leave. And they said, no, no, not until we get what we want. We didn't get our message across. You got the message across, and then you got the people coming over here wanted to kick your bloody butts at this point over here because A, they wanted to be antagonists about this one and the aggressors and blame it on you. But the thing is, even if you got the message across to the Biden administration and what was going on, and I probably would send this one over to the Biden administration if I could, that he's not gonna back off on his support with Israel. Neither would Congress. Bad enough when the GOP came out of a couple of campuses, tried to make their messages, and they got booed like crazy. They just wanted to show themselves as trying to deliver a message that's saying, this is bad for you to do this for the First Amendment rights. And I like to prove to them, saying, no, this was the right thing for them to do. But they ought to know the cost involved in this thing. And you didn't care. You're just there for the political show and being booed. You wanted to get it on camera so you can milk it for all you're worth. Just as bad as the antagonists coming on campus saying that they're pro one side over here, and yet they're going to be inflaming the other peaceful side into action and kind of beat up on them. Claim that it was their fault and everything else was their fault, so you must beat up on them because you're that much of a jerk. So again, you probably think I'm pro-Palestinian. Did Israel have a right to have a land? Did Jewish settlers have a right to have a land? I mean, everything was clearly marked for hundreds of years. Well, trying to keep their territories marked anyway. The Jews had been persecuted, nearly wiped out, and they needed a place to live. They wanted a place to restart their own lives. Of course, Palestinians were pissed off bad right after World War II. But it wasn't just the Israelis getting killed off in World War II; it was everybody else. People think they were Jewish, and blacks were getting nailed. Asians were getting nailed. I think Hitler wasn't going after Asians all that much. He'd go after the blacks because they're black, because he was that job. I'm not going to say it was right or wrong. I'll say it was insane. But they needed a homeland. The Israelis, the future Israelis. Yeah, they could have just been living in different countries if they were able to live back in Europe, but unfortunately, it was too much of a hotbed, and America was also turning into that kind of a hotbed as well. I think in my own interpretations of it. I wondered how the deliberations were made a long time ago, what the arguments were like in the newly formed United Nations. How much anger, frustration, when the decision was floated, and then it was voted upon. And then the borders were recreated out of Palestine. How much anger and vitriol there was. So the territory became Israel, created by United Nations back in 1948. There was not that much history learned about this one, even going through the college system. And this time, not even a whisper a word in the public education system when I was growing up. None of it. Should have been. It should have been. Would have been part of my heritage. I never knew what my father was, my biological. I don't know if he was Christian, Methodist, Jewish, or what. If my mother had known, I wish she had told me before, a long time ago, but it was never known. I could have had Jewish elements in my blood. Does it make me Jewish, or does it make me Hebrew or something? Well, you can't even identify Christian elements anyway, so it's a bit racial in it. You still got blood. Still got blood pumping through his system. My mother, my mother told me about my biological sperm donor getting rid of the middle name because it would have made him a target of being Jewish. I don't know what his major malfunction was, but he didn't like it. Okay, what if I was? What if I had the elements? Physical, maybe blood markers. Or would that determine me to be of the Jewish faith, of the Jewish mindset, or just I had, I don't know. What would distinguish me? I don't know. All I know is I was raised Methodist. That was all right. I was raised American, which is pluralistic theoretically. So it didn't get me endeared to not one single race or belief or creed or anything. It's not to be open-minded. Okay, I'm open-minded. It means I'm not hating anybody. Yeah, I don't hate. Okay, not supposed to hate. Should I hate? Could I hate? Yeah, if I was really fearful of the other person and going through and thermonuclear this point over here and saying, I hate them because I'm being a pain in the ass. Oh, speaking of which, she walks on four legs. Morning, honey. Come here. Oh, come here. Oh, come here. Come. Mama, come here. Come here. Come. Yeah, I know. You're a sweet mama. You're a silly mom and you're safe, mama. She walks on four legs. Morning, honey. Old lady, literally. So I don't understand. But getting back to what happened in UCLA, there's a lot more deeper conversations and discussions on this one. I'll do that in another video.